Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Karen Weaver. My guest today has been on the media rounds talking about the college sports industry and the role his company wants to play in its evolution. Jonathan Marks is the Chief Business Officer at Elevate, as well as the founder of Dynamic Pricing Partners. He is a past winner of the Sports Business Journal 40 Under 40 Award, and I recently saw his conversation with Bloomberg Power Players reporter Janet Lauren, and it was terrific. So, Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Karen. You are too kind. Really appreciate it and looking forward to the conversation.
So, let's just give the listeners just a brief background on what Elevate is, how it evolved, that type of thing.
Yeah, Elevate is a sports and entertainment marketing agency that's focusing on revenue generation across every aspect of a rights holder's commercial stack. So what that means is we'll partner with a team, a league or conference, a university, potentially a music promoter to help them maximize the value of the assets that they own and operate. That could be in the form of ticket sales, sponsorship sales. It could be in the form of understanding all of the ways that they can generate revenue from their stadium, both inside and outside the stadium. And so our hospitality and premium sales and experiences team will help them maximize the value there. Our creative team will help with the design of the look and feel of both inside the stadium or arena, also for, office spaces and Hall of Fames on campuses as well. We have our Elevate talent team, which will help with sourcing and acquiring the best talent for that sports team or college university music promoter as well. And then we also have our brand agency. And so our brand agency will work with large brands to help them maximize the value of their sponsorship assets across sports. And so overall, we aim to maximize the value of all of the assets that a sports entertainment property will have and generate more revenue on an incremental basis day in and day out.
Just so my listeners understand, one of the things I keep hearing a lot about is premium hospitality. Can you tell us a little bit more in detail what that might mean?
Yeah, so I think premium hospitality and premium experiences can mean something different to everyone. But when we kind of boil it down, what we're seeing across professional sports, and now you're starting to see it across college sports, is the evolution of a really unique, sometimes high end experience that you can have before, during, and after an event. And so, um, you started to see, I think, premium spaces, I would say, come to fruition, probably in this, last 15 years or so, but really are, becoming much more high end over the past, 5 years or so, where you're starting to see teams renovate current club spaces or premium suite areas, premium experience areas that they might have, built in the early mid 2000s, but are already becoming somewhat stale to the fan that wants a higher end experience. And so, because of that, uh, one of the things we've seen is that fans are willing to go to events and typically spend more, but they're attending less events than they have previously. So, even though they're attending less events, they're usually spending more than they were when they attended more events. So let's just say they attended 5 events for $1,000. Now they're attending 3 for $1,000 or sometimes more. So they're typically trading up for the smaller amount of times that they are attending those events. They want to enjoy a higher end experience that they might be used to, and in their daily life, whether that's at a restaurant or something similar, a hotel, something like that. And so, because of that, you're seeing the evolution of stadiums and arenas typically downsizing or decreasing the amount of seats that they have in order to take more spaces and build more premium seats. Was just on a call earlier today with the CFO of a college football partner of ours, and he said, "Jonathan, our stadium's too big. Like we know that. Outside of for a few games a year, even though we're a very high performing team, it's tough to actually move all those seats. And so you're starting to have teams think about either if they're going to build something new, building a smaller stadium than they typically would in the past, or if they previously renovated or have a larger stadium, thinking about downsizing that stadium and adding more premium spaces. Typically, premium seats will take up a larger square footage, and you'll give every individual more square feet per seat, and also for the spaces than you would for a normal, what we call kind of general admission or reserve seat. So because of that, you're starting to see that the evolution of that happen. We just ran a study around the young alumni or the young fan. And what we're seeing is all of those fans, they want, pregame hospitality. They crave that exclusivity, on-field experiences where they probably can't afford, but it's certainly something they want. And then typically inclusive food and beverage, other amenities as well. And really, they don't wanna have to think about kinda what's my budget for the game once I'm there. They'd rather have that kind of all-inclusive experience.
Interesting.
So you think about the next fans that are going to be buying tickets at sporting events and their companies will be sponsoring these teams. It's typically going to be that younger demographic that's moving up. They're creating wealth. Right now, it's certainly the Gen X and the boomers that are purchasing a lot of this inventory, but that
Okay.
next level is certainly craving a higher end experience than probably the older generations have in the past.
Gotcha. I don't know how much you followed the rebuild of the Northwestern University football stadium, but it strikes me as that's a great example of what this is. Does it strike you that way too?
Yeah, I know Jesse Marks, unrelated, I would say, um, but he's done a great job, and him and his athletic director have done a great job reimagining what that experience can look like at Northwestern. Uh, I think building a beautiful stadium that can have multi-purpose, and so it can be utilized and is really why it's probably purpose built for football concerts and third party events that can still drive revenue to the university or athletic department are not an afterthought in that process. And so they've designed that in a way that they could program it as year round as you can get in Chicago. So maybe like, 8 months of the year. So, but yeah, no, I think we're seeing that. Our partners at University of South Florida have done a tremendous job imagining what a game day experience can be like on campus. If you think about it, there are, quite a few universities out there that either play football or basketball off campus. Being able to take their fans from where it was in Raymond James Stadium and now bring everybody on campus in Tampa is going to create an amazing atmosphere, an amazing experience, and they have the freedom to dream, uh, and really can do so many things now that they can activate in and around their campus on game day versus kind of picking up and traveling across town to Raymond James Stadium. And so I think when you think about whether it's a new build of a stadium, which you don't see very often anymore, or it's a renovation, everybody is really becoming intentional about how they program and drive incremental revenue from what would be maybe normal seats and create
Yeah.
premium experiences. And I think when we say premium, like I think, it's important to realize that premium experiences can mean something different for everybody. It doesn't have to be super, super high end. Just giving access to a unique space that might not cost anything more, but you have access because maybe you're in the upper level, but you have access to this club area. I think, the New York Mets, I believe, have a club on every single level of the stadium. I believe they
Hmm.
have 5 levels of the stadium. Like
Wow.
that was the first time I think we saw that happening when City Field was built. And it's a really unique experience. And I look at like my evolution of, going to games when I was much younger in the 500 level to then maybe the 300 level club to the 200 level and then to the 100 level, right? And I think that's kind of what people want to experience. And again, my budget was very different, 20 years ago than it might be today.
Right, right. So let's shift into this big news that Elevate made a few months ago. You're committing a $500 million fund to college sports. Now, the timing of this coincides nicely with the $20.5 million that student athletes can earn up to $20.5 million in the Power Four conferences. How did the timing of this launch, how does it tie into this whole new landscape?
Yeah, Karen, that's a really, really good question. I think, when we started thinking about ways that we could create more value for our partners, it really centered around, I would say, a few key areas. The first was certainly premium experiences, which we just talked about. The second was around sponsorship and how we can help them generate more revenue from their assets, their owned and operated assets. And then the third was from capital. How can we help make it easier to fund some of, what I just discussed on the premium experiences side or creating new assets on campus? What we started to learn was that capital on college campuses is really unique. It's typically done in the form of a bond offering, which can take a decent amount of time to ultimately launch. It can be funded from campus, providing either a loan or just providing the capital to the athletic department. Or, you've started to see more public private partnerships. We thought that there was a significant need, and we've seen a significant need for a debt like capital structure where we're also sharing in the growth of that, facility renovation or new premium space, whatever the college or university might be building. So we put together a plan, brought in some of our investors, asked, ultimately who would want to be a part of this program, and started working with Velocity Capital and Texas Permanent School Fund to ultimately commit the capital so that we can go deploy it to colleges and universities around the country that have a need. The reason I think we are significantly different from anybody else that's out there is not only can we provide the capital, but we can also help that school operate and maximize the return on the new asset that they're creating. No one has launched anything like this that has an operator behind what they're doing. And so at Elevate, we have 70 plus collegiate partners. When you add in our pro space, nearly 200 partners across college and professional sports, live entertainment. And teams have operated on a daily basis inside these either athletic departments, professional sports teams. And so I'm one of the few people actually at Elevate that's, built a technology that, a technology company that Elevate acquired, and have never been on the team side. I do have 15 years of experience on the
Yeah.
ticketing side, but never on the team or property side. And so I think being able to deploy the capital in a way where we can then provide a significant amount of value to those schools alongside of them as they go through that process. But then also, let's just say we do a 10-year partnership. In 10 years, we don't own the asset, they own the asset outright versus, there's some other private equity offerings. And I'm not saying we're against it by any means. I think that's interesting. I'm not quite sure private equity and owning a piece of an athletic department makes a ton of sense the way these universities are and athletic departments are structured. And there's not I imagine there's not a ton of liquidity options for a private equity group that owns, say, 49% of an athletic department. It also makes it very difficult for that athletic department to probably operate in the ways that they have before. I'm not saying the ways they have before, though, are the ways they should operate going forward. But I do think there's going to be more governance and more structure put around how they operate, and it could inhibit some of the new things that they're ultimately trying to accomplish. And I think it's going to be interesting as the world shakes out from a capital perspective. Our structure is designed to help schools be in a much better place in 5 to 10 years than they are today. And that's how we've always operated at Elevate. We want to make sure that they're in a good position in 5 years from now. So when the next athletic director comes in, they're set up for success and they're not kicking the can down the road. I think some of the structures I've seen presented are actually athletic directors, looking at these and they're going to kick the can down the road and it's going to be somebody else's problem if they take that upfront capital today. So, it's going to be interesting to see when the news starts to trickle out of who's doing what. And I think schools are typically, I would say many schools will have the follower mentality And if somebody starts to do it, the floodgates will open.
Yes.
I do think that's what happens here. The question is it going to be the debt floodgate? It's going to be the equity floodgate, some combination of both. It's going to be interesting to see which one opens.
Can you walk us through a specific example of what a typical investment might look like? If I'm a school, I come to you and say, okay, where should we strategically deploy your assets?
Yeah, definitely. Let's think of it as, a football stadium that might not have been renovated for a while now, or maybe they renovated one sideline, but they have an end zone that is just a rows and rows of bleachers. It's uncomfortable. No one wants to sit there. Maybe it's hot, whatever it is. We could provide capital. And let's just say it's $100 million for them to knock down that end zone and then build some loge boxes, maybe some suites, maybe a premium club experience. We can ultimately provide that capital so that they can knock down that structure, build, say, 3, 4, 5 new premium products, sell that. Most likely it's going to be less seats, but they're going to generate, say, X of what they were generating before on an annual basis, plus a capital gifting program that we can work with them on. And so they'll take that capital, we'll earn back that money over a period of time, and we'll also help them operate and sell those new premium products as well. And so, in that structure, let's say it's a 10-year partnership. At the end of 10 years, ideally we still continue working with them, but either way, that initial upfront capital has been paid back, and so they're in a much better position, in 10 years than they.
Okay. So would the money be due back to you at the end of 10 years, or would you take it incrementally through the process?
Yeah, we're pretty open on structures. We could do, a lump sum at the end of 10 years. Probably wouldn't recommend that. But it really is going to depend on cash flow of the newly created asset and products that they're building. And so it really depends. But yeah, we're open and flexible on what that looks like.
Have you tracked at all about what Beaver Stadium at Penn State is doing? They're investing $700 million or more into their facility. Do you have any idea if it tracks with what you're talking about?
So Penn State's an amazing partner of Elevate's. They are not part of the capital
Okay.
initiative, but Elevate is there helping to support ticket sales of the $700 million plus stadium renovation.
Okay.
And yes, the team there, Pat Kraft and the entire Penn State team have done a tremendous, tremendous job at thinking through all of the assets and newly created products that they can put into the new sideline. It's
Okay.
gonna be a really amazing experience. Penn State and was already a fun experience on game day, but when you add some new products, I think it's gonna make it extra special.
I hope some schools do some activation around this with parking because getting in and out of stadiums can be really challenging. Are you thinking about that space at all?
I think parketing is the most interesting asset class and most undervalued asset class across college campuses. If you look at how game days are, you know, traditionally organized from a parking perspective, a lot of times you're working with so many different stakeholders. So you have campus that has certain parking lots, and let's just say, you have an early Saturday game. Well, there's still Friday classes. And so how do you, make sure people are out and everything? You have grass lots that get pretty beat up. And so they look great on game day because they're full, but then after game day, they look pretty.
Yes.
You have public lots around campus where people are monetizing and making money off of the content that you're putting in that stadium or arena on game days. Now, I will say many fans are underpaying for parking. So we're encouraging all of our partners, when it makes sense, to monetize the parking that they have on campus for game days in a much more effective way. Most are either giving it away or it's at certain donation levels, but they're not realizing the full value. We did a study for a Big 12 partner of ours where, we saw about $2 million in incremental revenue they could generate just by going to a more, it's a static pricing, but it's increasing prices where the true value is. So it's not even dynamically pricing, just increasing prices to where the true value is. And we're seeing things trade across both the secondary market, but also from a capacity and demand standpoint where fans want to be on game day. So I'm not quite sure we ever solved the ingress egress, you know, but I do think there's ways around it. I do have a rule that when I go to a college football game, I will typically make sure I have a hotel within walking distance. Don't
Okay.
have to deal with
Okay.
the ingress and egress, but I understand it is a pain point, and I've been there many times.
Yes. I think about all the fraternities and local homeowners that'll be selling off their driveways and their lawns. And
Yes,
that's
right, exactly, exactly, and sometimes that's the best spot because it's the exit, to the highway, and you're not sitting in a long line.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure and technology. First, you have that process on your side. But what are the needs that the schools have to create infrastructure and technology to leverage this investment strategy?
Yeah, it's a really, I would say, nuanced question because every school is unique. There are some schools that are very advanced from a data and analytics capability standpoint and don't need anything. And then there are some schools that are just now, activating or building, or adding to a CRM system. They're building a data warehouse. They're starting to connect, let's just say ticketing and uh, merchandise and concessions data into one area. But Elevate invests millions upon millions of dollars every single year from a technology infrastructure standpoint, just for our own company, but also for our partners to help them see their data in a really unique way that can provide actionable insights so that they can make decisions that will ideally either generate more revenue or help them decrease their expenses. And that's what we're focused on. I would say for schools, a lot of these systems don't have to be expensive. Whether, we're bringing something there that they can license from us at Elevate or salesforce.com or things along those lines are not actually that expensive, but create a tremendous amount of value to understand who is in and out of your stadium on a game day. How are you interacting with them on a daily or weekly, monthly, yearly basis? Looking at all those different factors. So I do think some schools have been short sighted in how they spend technology, particularly whether it's fan facing or behind the scenes, in order to maximize what we call the lifetime value of that fan. They be able to extract more dollars out of them and also create better experiences and interactions with that fan if they can know and learn more about them. So all of our technology spend is really focused on understanding the fan in a more nuanced way, and both demographically, psychographically, and understanding everything that they want or would aspire to want so that we can provide where it makes sense for that fan.
It makes sense. Now, obviously, if you ruled the world, you'd want to take over all the Division One programs and tell them how to run this. But even if you got half of that, how would you do competitive differentiation? How would you make Boise State and Colorado different in the way they approach this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd want to oversee all colleges and universities. I feel like it'd be, there's a lot of Twitter and social media backlash for those types of people.
Yes.
I'm not sure I can handle it, but I don't really know if a school needs to differentiate from another university, and I'll tell you why. And I think that's what's unique about sports and really in our business as an agency. Well, we get to work with uh you know, really big rivals. Alabama and Auburn are both partners. USC and UCLA are both partners. Uh, and so I think they're not really going after similar fan bases. For the most part, you're not going to convert an Alabama fan to an Auburn fan or a USC fan to a UCLA fan. It's going to be really very difficult to do. And so I do think what you can aspire to do is really create a game day experience that if you're, A and your school B fan, school B, would never think of ever coming to your game. All of a sudden, they're like, wow, I really want to experience, that pregame tailgate that they offer to everybody, or that concert they put on before the game, or the atmosphere that they have on a big game. And so I think that's how you can begin to differentiate. We see this and the race at Circuit of the Americas in Austin is a big partner of ours. They create a festival like atmosphere for all 3 days of their event. If you've ever been to the U.S. Open tennis tournament, also
Yes.
an Elevate partner, right? You don't have to be a tennis fan or an F1 fan to enjoy those events. You go and there's food and there's events going on, and there's such an energy there that you don't always get that at a normal regular season college football game or professional sports game. And I think because of that, if you can channel that and create an experience like the US Open or like an F1 race weekend, even a big music festival weekend, I do think you can really differentiate and you can start to acquire fans that might have never thought about attending an event on your campus. So that is probably a way that I would advocate for differentiation from that perspective. Like, how do you create the most unique game day experience that, you know, I guess, the fan that is most against you from a competitive standpoint would still come to your event just to experience what that's like?
Yeah, I think that's important for presidents to hear because they want to think of their campus as unique and standalone, yet still share in some of the greatness that is college sports playing across multiple campuses. So I think that's an important understanding for presidents. My last question is this: what role do you see Elevate playing in the broader transformation of college athletics? Is it a professional model only? Is it a hybrid? Where do you see us going with this?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my team yesterday. Like, when people say the professionalization of college athletics, I'm not sure I like that phrase. I think it's more the commercialization of college athletics and really taking all the amazing assets they have from their IP on campus, around their campus, and how can they start to leverage and monetize and really claw back some of the what we call leakage in the system where, other people are maybe making money off of their brand and IP, but also how can they create new assets and experiences for, their fans both on game days, but also, on TV or virtually in order to maximize the value. And then when you add the athlete and the house settlement rev share, I think that interesting dynamic will allow schools, number one, to be more creative because they have to. Number two, find really new, unique ways to generate revenue and partner with brands and people to find new opportunities. And then number three, I think you're going to start to see the evolution of, "If we've never done this before, we're not going to do this," to, "You know what, we've never done this before. Well, let's see what it's all about." And you're starting to see that the amount of athletic directors that I've conversed with probably over the last 2 months around naming rights on a stadium that they said would never have a brand or corporate logo on is mind-boggling. And I think when you think about the shift that needs to happen, that shift has already happened, but the shift that has happened is really unique. 5 years ago, athletic directors would never even be talking about that. Before COVID, they're worried about their donors. Now, unless the discussion is around revenue generation or decreasing expenses, expense mitigation, athletic directors are probably not going to be that focused on it. And so I think it's going to be really unique. Elevate will play a significant role in the growth of college athletics and helping our partners find new ways to generate incremental revenue, maximize the assets on campus, and then also create new fan experiences. And I think I don't want that to be lost because without the fans that are coming to your events, supporting your university, there's no college athletics.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really important going forward to keep that in mind.
It's a great point. And one other thing I want to ask you about, you made me think about, what about the students? The students are there. They don't supposedly have a lot of money in their pockets. They'll be selective about the experiences. Will you create or do you create separate experiences for them?
Yeah. That's again, I think a really nuanced question because I think every single school has a lot of challenges with a couple areas with student ticketing or students in general. Number one, how do you get students to show up early or stay late on game days, right? If they show up early, they're going to leave by halftime. How do you get them to stay after halftime? So I think there is, incentives and ways that you can create new new experiences for students so that they will stay late. We were at a school a few weeks ago, and I believe they had a burrito giveaway. So for anybody that was there in the second half,
Yeah.
they voucher for a free burrito. And they said it helped significantly with attendance. And that game was a blowout, but it helped significantly with attendance for those students. You then have some stadiums where students are on the 50-yard line. We're talking like oceanfront real estate that, now in this time of college athletics and revenue generation, like maybe we might have to push back on campus or the student union and say, we need to take this real estate back. We're going to move the students over a few sections. Again, starting to hear schools think about that. So I would say, that was a long answer to basically say, I don't know if we're really, Elevate is not, I would say, focused on creating experiences for students. I do think it is important for our partners and school presidents to realize to incentivize students to show up and also stay late if they can, because I do think it creates a better atmosphere versus a bunch of adults or public fans. It's not as fun. It's always fun when the students there and they do, fun things in their student sections. It's what game day is all about, right? You don't see that as much in the pro space
That's right.
in most areas.
That's right. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me. This is a really informative conversation. I think my audience is going to find it very insightful and helpful.
Thank you, Karen. Really appreciate the time and thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.